Hello, everybody. My name is Selma, and today I will introduce the topic of social structure based on Chapter 7 by the Network Society. This chapter is about the infrastructure of society, so basically, how society works. One of the core arguments described in the book is that communication networks are influencing the social infrastructure, causing it to change. However, it also works the other way around, as communication networks are also shaped by the changing social infrastructure. These mutual shaping processes create the network society. Today, we will be looking at three topics, which are central points of the infrastructure of today's society. We will be talking about space and time, internet and social media, and digital divide. So first we start with space and time. The use of media networks changes even the most basic coordinates of the structure of societies, like space and time. These dimensions are linked to social structures dominated by individual or social and private or public relationships, which we will be talking about later. Time and space distantiation is a term used to show that human and social time and space horizons tend to widen in the course of history. The traditional society was based on direct interaction between people living close to each other, and the modern society is now stretching further and further across space and time. Barriers of space are broken by the increasing reach of communication and transportation. Some people say that distance and time seem to lose any relevance, and they even speak about the death of distance and timeless time. However, they are wrong because time and space are getting more important in the network society. This is the most general instance of the laws of network extension and trend amplification. The process of time-space distantiation is marked not only by the expansion of space and time, but also by the contraction of space and the compression of time. Technological capabilities of bridging space and time enable people to be more selective in choosing coordinates of space and time. Think about stock markets. Hesitating for only 1 second or failing to make a fast connection to another financial market could mean the difference between profit and loss. That's why transnational corporations are extremely careful in strategically choosing the right place for their departments. Another important topic is the expansion and compression of space and time. This unity is an expression of the law of network extension. The spatial expansion is described as the detachment of society from geography. Natural time being outstripped by the increasing importance of clock time constructed by society. Could you imagine not knowing which day it was or not having to worry about how many months we have in a year? I couldn't. This is because we're all structured to this clock time. Another topic is generalization and standardization. We perceive a generalization and standardization of social environments. The exchange of experiences through networks on a global level has led to general diffusion of Western urban culture. For instance, almost every airport in the world looks the same, no matter where you are. Individualization is the world of the individual, where it reaches the focus of attention, and this is what's happening exactly now in this time, especially with the use of internet and social media, which we'll be coming to later. Unification is the fragmentation of social environments, and this is compensated by the unification of the particular world of an individual. Facebook, for example, is a demarcation of some kind of personal garden, a coherent picture of my world. Differentiation, on the other hand, is generalization and standardization of the social environment, meeting the opposite trends of particularity and cultural differentiation. For instance, beneath the surface of those globalized airports, one can always find the particulars of a local culture. Moving on to the second topic of today is internet and social media. We all know this. But some 100 years ago, we didn't have this, and network society's most important characteristics are the dissolving of boundaries between the macro, meso, and micro levels of social life, and between the public and private spaces, also between the spheres of living, working, studying, recreation, and traveling. Most people assume that our personal spaces, the domestic sphere in particular, will become multifunctional. But at the same time, it's assumed that people want to perform their activities in a single space, preferably at home. This dissolving of boundaries is caused by the linking of spaces that remain and are used primarily for special purposes. The network's most fundamental technical characteristics are the connection that it makes, which enables the combination of multifunctionality and specialization everywhere. The increasing multifunctional use of spaces and time cannot be denied. The new media enable working, studying, and entertaining oneself at home, at every hour of the day. The workaholics will be able to work while having a holiday by taking their laptop to the beach to work. Is it even considered a holiday? And this is exactly what telecommuters do. They are employees who have a formal agreement with their employers, which allows them to spend some part of the working week at a specific location other than the office, such as their own home. However beautiful all the opportunities that the internet and social media bring, there are also downsides, such as social isolation, the difficulty of separation from other activities, often caused by social media. And social media, or SNS, social networking sites, are internet applications that enable the sharing of information. The intention of all users of social media is to be social, and the social drive behind using them is an important trend of the network society. The individual is becoming the most important node in a network society, and not a particular place, group, or organization. Networks are the social counterpart of individualization. By using them, the individual creates a very mobile lifestyle and a crisscross of geographically dispersed relations. It will mean that while being social, individual will ironically spend more time alone, accompanied by technology such as laptops, phones, iPads, and so on. A very large part of social networking site users do not make a distinction between their personal and public profiles. Today's marketing greatly embodies businesses using social networking sites to reach an audience with effective personalized messages. You've probably seen some ads on Facebook seeming very personal, but of course we all know that this is just business-related marketing. Even with all the advantages of social media, they also tend to blur the distinction between interpersonal and mass communication. And this has always been a characteristic of the internet. Here we see an image from the book, which illustrates the differences between public and private networks and communications. Here, mass communication corresponds to public information sites and marketing on social media, which we just talked about. Whereas mass self-communication corresponds to the combination of mass communication, public, and mass self-communication, private. Interpersonal communication, on the other hand, is private on private communication, such as chatting or video conferencing. This brings us to the social and personal effect of social media, which has some characteristics. The blurring traditional dividing lines in life and communication, the dilemma of privacy and the disclosure of identity, higher connectivity and increase of sociability, popularization and inequality, institutions are under pressure, there's an information and communication overload, social pressure and addiction even, and unknown manners. Social media often lead to some increase of new social contacts for average users, but it's far more important in updating and maintaining existing relationships. So there is an increase in social contacts, but they mainly support existing strong ties. However, the internet increases social contacts more for some people than for others. With all these disadvantages building up, this brings us to the digital divide. Digital divide is the gap between those who do and those who don't have access to computers and the internet. There's two characteristics when it comes to digital divide. The first is a distinction is made between four successive kinds of access to the new media or ICTs. These are motivation, material or physical access, skills, and usage. We will discuss these four kinds later on. And the second characteristic of digital divide is the causes and consequences of inequalities to be observed with these kinds of access are made explicit in the theory of inequality in the information and society. The resources and appropriation theory is the direct cause of unequal access to digital technology, which is the distribution of a large number of resources. These are not only material resources, such as income and the possession of equipment, but also temporal resources, having the time to use the new media, mental resources, sufficient technical knowledge, social resources, networks and ties that help to attain access, and cultural resources, the status and other cultural rewards that motivate people to get access. There are two types of inequalities that appear to be related to the amount of access different people have to the new media. The first being personal inequalities such as age, sex, ethnicity, intelligence, personality, and health or disability. The second being positional inequalities such as particular job or occupation, specific level of education, and so on. Back to the four successive kinds of new media access. The first, motivation. It all starts with the motivation to achieve access to the internet. It influences the decision to buy a computer, to learn some skills, and to use interesting applications. Maybe they have lack of time or knowledge of technology. It could also be lack of affinity, money, or social relations that inspire and help people how to handle technology. The personal inequalities could be young people and males who are more motivated to adopt and use computers. Intelligence and personality also count. Positional inequality, less important for motivation, but having or wanting a particular job or education urges people to obtain access, such as LinkedIn. The second successive kind of new media access is material and physical. After acquiring the motivation to get access, the challenge for new users is to act on it and buy a computer or use someone else's. Positional inequality is the labor market and education position of being part of a particular type of household, for example, with school-going children, and a developed country or region. Personal inequality here may be age, gender, and disability. The third successive kind of new media access is skills. Media-related digital skills and operational skills, being able to successfully operate digital media, know how to use buttons, they name this button knowledge, and formal skills, file and menu structures, web browsing, and navigating. There are also content-related digital skills such as information skills, valid search, selection and evaluation of digital media content, communication skills such as email, chat, or designing social networking sites profiles such as Facebook. Content creation skills are also there, which are being able to contribute acceptable software, websites, blogs, tweets, postings, profiles, etc. And lastly, strategic skills, being able to use digital media as a means for a particular personal or professional goal. The last successive kind of new media access is usage. Some people have the motivation, access, and digital skills to use computers, but just don't use them. The level of operational and formal digital skills is rising, while the level of content-related skills, such as information and strategic skills, is not. Or it's distributed extremely unevenly between people with high and low education. People with low educations use computers to chat, use social media, play games, and visit online marketplaces, whereas people with high educations use it more for news, government, travel services, and teleworking. Personal equalities here are age, sex, race, intelligence, personality, and health. This brings us to the appearance of usage gaps. There are different types of clusters of internet application with a particular usage purpose. These clusters are information and news, education and careers, social communication, and entertainment and shopping and commerce. The usage gaps of age and gender were bigger than the education gap. Young people use all the applications more than seniors, and females were more likely to use the internet for social communication and entertainment functions. Research has shown that as the diffusion of mass media information into a social system increases, segments of the population with a higher socioeconomic status tend to acquire this information at a faster rate than the lower status segments. This is also called the knowledge gap. And the user gap has a much broader scope than the knowledge gap. The user gap is also more likely to grow, and this division would mean structural inequality. Structural inequality appears when, on the one hand, an information elite strengthens its position, while on the other hand, those groups already living on the margins of society become excluded from communications in society, because they are practiced in media which they do not possess. I would like to thank you for your time and attention, and I hope you learned something today.